decision.
Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. My name is Jerry Miller. It's good to be with you on a rainy Monday. We're very excited about this interview. She said it, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Kathleen Galvin is in the house. And this lady has a zest for life, and it's like an 80-pound gorilla has been removed from her shoulders. Good afternoon, Kathy.
Yeah, you got that right. It took me quite a while to get over the fact that I no longer had to spend every evening in some meeting. But yeah, it's been over a year now since I've left the halls of City Hall, and I can tell you it's been wonderful sleeping all night long. I'm getting exercise. I'm eating well. It's, you know, in spite of all the other atrocities going on in the world, it actually was a very good thing for me to be able to go and regroup, and now I'm coming out feeling quite strong.
Well, think about this. You get off council right as a generational pandemic that no one had ever seen before hits the world. I mean, you talk about timing right there. Now we have 5 folks on council who we talked about off air. We feel compassion and empathy, and oftentimes we're left scratching our heads as well. So why don't I start with an open-ended question? I see the Daily Progress watching. I see the CVille watching. As we said, the TV station's watching. An open-ended question, what are your thoughts on everything that's transpired in the news cycle here with local government?
Well, I think it does show the importance of making sure that you're looking at things comprehensively. And I am a firm advocate of not playing with zero-sum games. Your constituents have multiple needs, not just one or two. And it's your job as an elected official to be able to balance all those needs and keep the balls in the air at the same time. That's why it's very important that you develop a sense of collegiality and teamwork on city council. That's a very, very difficult thing to do. But the point of the matter is that, you know, many hands make the work light. If you can all start working together, then maybe you can start listening to each other's perspectives, and then maybe you can also make sure that there are no zero-sum games. We need to improve our infrastructure. It's really old and dated. It's auto-centric. We've got utility lines that are on the verge of the end of their lives. We need to do the same thing with improving our schools. The schools are dated, over 50, 60 years old. And at the same time, we all know that we do need to address our affordable housing crisis. But you cannot increase densities in our city without also making sure you've got the pedestrian infrastructure in place, the cycling infrastructure in place to make it safe to put the density on our streets. We learned that lesson with West Main Street. If you want to make sure that you've got a school system that's viable and filled with healthy children, you've got to make sure that your infrastructure getting to the schools is safe and multimodal, and something which, by the way, could let kids walk to school again. Our kids haven't been walking to school for the last 30, 40 years, and now we've got childhood obesity rates that are 3 times they were from 1960. So these things are not mutually exclusive. Infrastructure, schools, housing, that's what city government is all about. And what I'm hearing on city council is this notion of picking winners and losers. That means you're picking winners and losers in the community. And I don't think that's something that we can afford or should do.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show. Strictly for the sake of a talk show, because I really do 99.9% agree with everything you've said here. For the sake of a talk show, devil's advocate, there's a limited money in an account, and this money is allocated by local government to projects. And COVID has limited that money in the account even more because we're uncertain of the tax revenue that's to be collected in the future, and we know that the tax revenues that's been collected to this point is not what it should be or what it was. So these 5 folks on council have to determine how this money in this account goes, and they have some key projects. They have this garage on Market Street that was part of a promise to keep the courthouses downtown, as you know, with Albemarle County. They have massive school reconfiguration, and they got a $50 million plus project on West Main. And this project, fortunately, has some matching money from the Commonwealth and some contributions from the University of Virginia. So how do these 5 folks on council, you've been in this position, how is it not a zero-sum game when they have limited money and a bunch of hands that need the money?
Well, it's going to require a lot of strategic partnerships, and I'm glad you brought up the West Main project, because that was a situation where back in 2013 when the project started, and it was the product of a 2-year community engagement process that got 300 to 400 people involved, made lots of agreements and came up with lots of solutions to deal with a lot of gnarly issues on that street. It was broken up into 4 phases for a reason, so that you can alternate between applying for revenue sharing funds and smart scale funds in the state, so that you wound up creating not just partnerships in the community, but partnerships between the locality and the state. Well, bingo, we got those partnerships working. So the first 3 phases have actually gotten about 45% of their funding covered by the Commonwealth of Virginia. That's incredible.
That's incredible.
Do you think Martinsville or Danville would throw away state money like we're looking at right now? So that is an important piece to look at. It was broken up into phases, and then it now has strategic partnerships with the state. It has great possibility for getting federal partnership if we do get an infrastructure bill that's supposedly coming down the pike from the Biden-Harris administration. I was on the school board in 2008 when we saw what happened when the Obama relief packages come, but you've got to have your project shovel ready. You've got the first phase, second phase of West Main Street shovel ready, okay? Now look at the schools. I was on the school board that voted for the reconfiguration. I was the one that came up with the idea that we could have one of the schools then be repurposed into a state-of-the-art early childhood development center, because we do know early childhood education is critically important to close achievement gaps. That said, that's now 12 years ago, that I voted as a councilor to put the $3 million in for the planning funds for that reconfiguration plan to go forward in 2019, but they haven't even signed the contract yet for the scope of work with the architectural firm, all right? We don't even have documents that can be estimated. We have got to break that project up into phases like we did with West Main. We've got to get accurate figures so that we know what we're talking about. What kind of partnerships can we make with the state, with the federal government? The federal government even more immediately looks like we're going to be getting monies as part of the American Relief Plan to start retrofitting schools to make them more spacious and more safe for coming back in the wake of COVID or during COVID. So don't look at these things in isolation. How can you get federal money and use it in a way that's going to further your reconfiguration goals? That's a partnership at the federal, local level. How are you going to work with the Department of Education at the state level to get additional grants to move into that arena as well at the state level? And then how are you going to break it up into phases so that, again, you're not getting – it would be like having to say that the West Main project would be done in one phase at $49 million. You don't do it that way. So why all of a sudden is this happening this way? I don't get it.
I think it's the politics and the PR that's trying to be leverage because there's certain folks in the community that are vehemently opposed to this West Main Streetscape project. So what they're doing is they're creating this narrative and comparing and contrasting, creating this zero-sum game situation where if we give money to West Main, then the schools are suffering. And it's because the narrative is they don't want the West Main Streetscape project. Lloyd Snook on this show and then the next day on the dais compared this to the downtown mall project. And I believe the price tag in the downtown mall project, which was in the 80s, was under $10 million. And he says if you extrapolate that over a long period of time, it was a significant amount of money. Heather Hill on the dais in the last meeting said, I want to do the first 3 phases of this project, maybe phase 4, because we don't have the money. Maybe we can consider putting that down the pipe. Michael Payne has straight up said he's against it. Nakia Walker has straight up said she's against the West Main Streetscape project. This basically leaves Sina McGill here as the determining vote on a project that's been talked about since the late 80s?
Yes.
What do you think? Am I reading the tea leaves correctly
Well,
here?
number one, councilors are pulled and pushed in different directions, and they all have their own certain constituent bases. I think it's still very important for the entire council, though, to look, again, at the big picture. What does the city need in toto? And again, to say that street safety and human equity as it applies to mobility is somehow not as important as
Equity as it applies
equity.
to mobility basically means that not everybody has access to a car, so they should be able to walk or ride a bicycle safely.
It's $9,000 to $10,000 a year to own a car,
Right.
maintain it, insure it, and if you create pedestrian infrastructure, the infrastructure to walk, that means you're also making it easy to walk to bus stops. The number one transportation choice for service workers is public transit. So I don't understand why this is being pitted almost as somehow just a beautification project. This is essential.
Yeah.
How we move has a fundamental impact on the way we build our cities. It has multiple decades of impact.
It's the moniker streetscape. It's an unfair moniker to the actual scope of this project.
Yeah, well, I think, it's like we'll never actually move the needle in terms of global climate change if we do not get to the point where we wean ourselves off of car
course.
dependency.
Yeah.
So that's the other element. Why is sustainability being pitted against equity? It doesn't need to be.
You have two Board of Supervisors watching from Albemarle County. Neil Williamson's watching the show. Keith Smith is watching the program. You have leadership watching you now on the show here. I think it's important to emphasize, and you have emphasized this, that there's a tremendous amount of underground, and help educate us here, a tremendous amount of underground work that needs to happen. So teaming this project with the underground work project makes sense.
Absolutely. So I think the natural gas lines are nearing the end of their life.
This is underground?
Yes.
Okay.
So they have got to be replaced. And I am from New England. I do have relatives that still live near North Andover, Massachusetts. North Andover, several years ago, actually had natural gas lines break and hundreds and hundreds of homes destroyed. I don't know if there was loss of life. So there's also the importance, I think the water lines are in fairly good shape, although pressure was always an issue. So you've had the situation where there's been a lot of development on West Main Street. This is the time to go and upgrade not only your gas lines and your water and sewer lines, but then also any kinds of information technology that we need, the fiber optics. This is a time to actually get a lot of things undergrounded. The last phase that the Commonwealth of Virginia has agreed to fund will fund undergrounding utilities.
Is that phase 3?
Yes.
Okay.
And I definitely understand putting on hold the fourth phase.
Okay, why the fourth phase? Because it hasn't been funded, right?
Because it hasn't been funded,
Right,
and
right.
it's closest to the University of Virginia. It's already had a lot of repair work going on in that street because of the buildings that UVA invested in.
And the expectation would be if we can get to the fourth phase through 3 phases, if we can get to the fourth phase, UVA has even more skin in the game that they have the capital resources to maybe step up and finish the project.
Well,
is that fair?
They've already agreed. This was when I was on the Planning and Coordinating Council. And at that time, we entered into negotiations with then Pat Hogan, who was a provost. And there was a commitment to make of $5 million to the project. And so that is on the table. That is something that still needs to be collected. So now we're talking about $18 million plus $5 million.
23, 18 from the state.
From community partnerships
Yeah.
at the state level and the local
That's half
level.
the project.
It is half the project.
Yeah.
So that is a situation, we don't even know what will happen to our future requests for smart scale and revenue sharing
If you don't take
we
the money?
turn this down.
Wow, I didn't think
Okay,
about that.
and because if we turn this money down, it's going to go to Orange to pay for a roundabout. And I'm not faulting Orange for
Sure.
wanting the money, but every other community in Virginia would die for
this money, especially now, especially in COVID.
Because you don't, we will never get to the point where we retrofit our streets to no longer privilege the car if we don't take advantage of these monies. And the car is important to keep in mind because that is the tailpipe emissions is the principal contributor to greenhouse gas emissions in the country, in the world. So how can this city say that it is for sustainability?
Yeah, that's called hypocrisy.
And
That's called hypocrisy.
And not invest in the infrastructure that is the major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions.
Especially the most important road in Charlottesville.
It is. It's the road where most people walk
It connects
and bike.
UVA to downtown.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's because those, why? Because those, when you look at a map and you just look at a map that just came out with CVille plans together, I just saw it this morning. Where are the main employment centers in Charlottesville? It's UVA and the downtown mall. All right? This is still in spite of COVID. And so if you're making that so we can walk to work and bike to work as opposed to getting in the car, you're doing a couple things. You're reducing the greenhouse gas emissions and putting carbon dioxide in the air.
Less wear and tear on roads.
And you're increasing longevity of roads, but you're also increasing the longevity of human beings.
Exercise.
I just read that if a person with diabetes walks just 2 hours a week, they've increased their life expectancy. And this is another important piece, because when you look at where we've made most of our urban renewal projects, where we did road widening, making it more accessible for cars, where the major metric of success was moving a car without delay. That's called speed. Well, that's Preston, that's also Elliott, that's Monticello. West Main wasn't widened, but it was very much an auto-centric kind of dealerships and car merchants and that kind of stuff, so it was all auto-oriented. But when you're thinking about those kinds of roadways, they're sandwiched in between black neighborhoods most of the time, or majority black neighborhoods. Well, they're because of the demographic changes in Charlottesville, we don't have many majority black neighborhoods anymore. But the fact of the matter is that the individuals and the families that are hurt most by rapid car traffic are often minority communities, because you look at the data, it says that the black and brown people are killed at higher rates than white people, and they're more dependent on walking and taking the bus. So it is.
This is a no-brainer.
It's a fair. It's all a question of fairness. It's a question of parity. It's a question of sustainability, and again, this shouldn't be pitting this anything against the schools. The schools just have, excuse the pun, but they have a lot more homework to do in terms of getting the data, getting the numbers, getting the designs, and then breaking up it into phases so that it can be paid for. I think we all need to do a better job at lobbying the General Assembly to make sure that the state starts paying for capital improvements in schools. The states are the number one purveyor of education policy in the Commonwealth. Well, they've historically not paid for their mandates. So it's time. But you shouldn't be, I don't see how this can possibly be a zero-sum game.
Very, very compelling case right there, made by former City Councilor Kathleen Galvin. A roughly $50 million project, the most important stretch of road in Charlottesville between downtown and UVA. $23 million being contributed from the Commonwealth and the University of Virginia, 18 from Virginia, 5 from the university. We have to replace the infrastructure underground already, right? And on top of that, the competition for this money, the narrative is schools, and she just explained how schools have a bit of work to do before they can actually get allocated any money from the coffers. I thought it was an excellent explanation. So we're 22 minutes in. I want to cover so much more with you. How about the garage on Market Street? Anywhere you want to go, and then I'll ask some specifics.
So the parking garage, again.
Neil Williamson says hello.
Hi, Neil.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you.
Neil Williamson is watching. He's
Okay.
listening to you. He's listening to you.
on another matter. But I'm glad you like the form-based code in the Rio small area
He's
plan.
giving you props right now, and he just shared what you're saying.
So anyway, let's see how we can make the form-based code work so that you like it at hydraulic, and that you like it in the SIA. So anyway, the
garage.
The garage. So the garage.
This is a sticky situation here.
It's very sticky.
Yeah.
And
because you were part of the deal.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And remember, those were the days before we had a pandemic that demonstrated clearly the value of telecommuting. And the research that I've been looking at has said that telecommuting has meant that driving has gone down about 15 to 20%. And they don't think it's coming back. So you've got that, and then you've got a situation where you need to have the courts whole. We need to make sure that we are true to our word. It's like international alliances. You back out of things, then your name is mud.
You're talking the promise the city made to the county.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but what the city has made to the county is a promise for a number of spaces. It was like 100 spaces. The value I saw in creating a small parking garage was that over time that would allow us to tear down the big old one that we've got and reassess what kind of mixed-use programming could go on that site, because the writing is on the wall. The parking is the driving is starting going down. Parking needs are going to start going down. We're not there yet. So I would need to do a little bit more research myself and homework on this matter. Like, what would it mean if we built that new garage, but then made plans to, just as a city, sell the property, recoup a lot of benefits from it.
So the Market Street garage property?
Yeah,
The current garage property?
The current garage.
Wow, I haven't heard this one.
Well, this is...
I like it.
This is
it.
what happens when Kathy Galvin gets sleep.
I like it. So your idea is to leverage the current garage, sell it, to get the capital to recoup the money invested in the new garage.
Yeah, well, and you'll do it...
Who would you sell that to? Like a Mark Brown type?
I don't want to go there.
Okay, right. Okay. But you know what I mean.
So, but it's...
A private, deep-pocketed individual?
But when I think about, and I will say this, a heartbreaking loss to the community was the fact that the city did not follow through with the Market Plaza. That was the Keith Woodard project on 2nd Street.
Yeah, for the farmer's market.
But that was a situation where we did, as a condition of sale for publicly owned land, you could identify what you wanted in the program. And that's what I would suggest. But that's got to be, there's a lot of moving parts on that right now. But again, right now, I'm hearing a lot of, no, let's just cut this off, let's cut this out, let's not do this. And I think it's time to start saying, well, what are our timelines? What is the timeline now? Has the timeline for the building of the courts changed? My hunch is it has. Okay, so does that give us more time to think this through? What else could we be doing? We've got to be committed to providing those 100 spaces of parking. But I think it's a matter of, well, if we build that smaller parking garage, maybe that is the one that we really will need in the long term. Repurpose a piece of land that the city has a major ownership in and recoup a lot of revenue from that at a time when we desperately need revenue. But then still have parking in that facility, but just have it be something else. Also, we need more housing. All these things need more housing. I think there was a suggestion that to see if we could make the parking garage more of a blend on Market Street, more of a blend with housing and parking. It's a tight site, but I think that if there is time, and again, that needs to be researched, it's something that we could look into.
We had Councilor Snook and Councilor Payne on the show within the last couple weeks. In fact, Michael Payne's coming on tomorrow. And last week when Councilor Snook was on, he said that maybe we shouldn't build the garage He said that the demand for parking is clearly subsidized. And he said that the alternative option that was negotiated was just allocating the spots in the Market Street garage to the county. And then you know this better than I do. And then what? Giving back a portion of the sale of the land?
Yes.
To Albemarle
Yes.
County. So he's thinking maybe that's just the path that we take. And from his standpoint, he feels that the city's still keeping its word with the county because that was the second option that was part of the agreement.
Yes.
Do you think that's fair?
I think that's very fair. And the reason why, you always have to build in redundancies and contingencies, right, when you have contracts, because you never know, especially when you're dealing
Local government.
with local government,
Right.
where it seems like, and we're seeing this play out now, every time there's a change of counselors, you have disruption in capital projects, which is deadly to the morale of staff.
Right.
Okay, because capital projects transcend 4-year terms. They go beyond, as again, West Main Street's been going on since 2013. So again, before you embark on building a project and getting the construction documents and applying for state monies and building the momentum to get the project done within staff, you really need to know what you're doing. And if you're going to, and I just want to add this, because there was a really beautiful statement that the city council made the same day that they revealed that they were hiring Chip Boyles as the acting or interim.
Was this the stabilize the organization statement?
It was a stabilize the organization statement. And if you're going to stabilize the organization, you've got to make sure that you're not
Chip is watching
demoralizing.
right now, by the way.
That you're not demoralizing that organization. And when staff have been committed to working on a project for years, and then all of a sudden it's just completely yanked out from under them, they're going to, well, why do we bother with community engagement?
Right.
Why do we bother with going after
So do you
state
attribute
money?
the attrition in part to that? Because we have another phrase that's being thrown around by council is institutional memory, along with stabilize the organization. And to say the city hall does not have institutional memory right now is like saying the Pope knows holy water, right? There is no institutional memory right now. We have no deputies. People are quitting left and right. The guy who I think was the potential neighborhood services guy took the job, didn't even show up to the city before freaking leaving to Powhatan. That legitimately happened.
I know.
Which is crazy. So why can we not, is Chip Boyles going to stabilize the organization? Did you like that hire?
I very much did. I also want to be on the record as saying that I also supported strongly Dr. Teron Richardson. And I was one of the people that also advocated for asking Dr. Richardson to come back. He was, in my view, a change agent, and that's the big decision point that the council has to make as a body. Do you want status quo or do you want a change agent? So with Chip Boyles, you've got somebody who I've worked with, because I was on the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. I was on the TJPDC when we hired Chip. And that was one of the best hires that organization ever made. He's an incredibly professional, likable,
He's a great guy.
knowledgeable person.
Yeah.
Who knows state and local government, who knows infrastructure, transportation and land use planning.
He knows how to play the game.
So I think, but I want to also, you've got to have that political bone, you got to know how to do the game,
Yeah.
but you also have to have content knowledge, and he's got it. Okay, so as a consensus pick, I was surprised and relieved that it was Mr. Boyles. So and I'm also relieved, I was very relieved to read that council was letting Mr. Boyles have time to assess all these moving parts in the capital project, to talk to people, talk to the schools, talk to the people in the state. What are the implications of these decisions? What are the pros and cons? That is what a city manager is supposed to do for you. Give you the analysis that you need as an elected official to make the decision that is the most prudent and the most fair. Period. So, but without a city manager at the helm, you had 5 individuals trying to make a decision with departments all looking at the problem from their own perspective.
Siloed, yeah.
Office of Budget did their job, but they don't have the big picture. That's what the city manager's office is for. So the fact that the city has not had stable government with a council fully backing its city manager
in a couple
for
years.
several years now.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Because you say Mike Murphy was interim.
Yeah. Is part of the reason why we've got such crisis right now.
Do you think Chip, how long do you think Chip, and we both love Chip Boyles, how long do you think Chip Boyles does the city manager here? Knowing 2 spots are open for council on November 3rd, and whoever those 2 spots come, have Snook, McGill, and Payne for what, another 3 years? So whoever gets elected on the 3rd of November, we could be in this search again, right? Do you see it playing out that way?
Well, and I think the council made it very clear that they wanted to have a search.
A national search.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
is that fair to Chip?
Well, Chip was told that, so he knows the score.
There you go.
And I understand that he will be more than welcome to submit his name. So I think we're all kind of coming into this with eyes open, I hope, and I'm sure, because they're all, Mr. Boyles, again, is extremely competent, intelligent person. So I think, right now, though, we've got the acute need right now is to get through this budget season, and it's February. So, and that was the other thing that was strange to me. Why was the council being asked to make this final decision in mid-February? The budget doesn't have to be approved until April. And then it was only recently when it was determined that from VDOT's perspective, or Smart Scale, the state funding perspective for West Main Street, it wasn't an immediate decision that needed to be made. They had 30 days. So again, take this time. Time is not long, but there's still time. Do the pros and cons analysis. Make a real good estimate of when things can start happening at the same time, schools and infrastructure, and then take it from there. I think what's also interesting is it's really important to see the creativity and ingenuity that's starting to happen in other realms, like I've been reading about how the Planning Commission in the county has approved the site plan for the retrofit, the adaptive reuse of of one of the hotels on 29.
Yeah, it was awesome.
To part of a partnership with Piedmont Housing Alliance and TJAC. I think that's brilliant. Oh, and the Virginia Supportive Housing. So that's happening with all private players, all nonprofits. They're all securing their own resources. There will probably be an ask on the part of the local government at some point to help fill gaps with low-income housing tax credits, because we do know that there's been gaps in financing with that program for several years now. But be that as it may, this is what I call inventiveness and creativity and ingenuity, and we're taking what the lemons and making lemonade out of it. An empty building is not good, but you reuse it. And we've got to reuse, recycle, and repurpose so much now of our built environment. This is an opportunity. It's not something to freeze dead in our tracks just because it doesn't have a green field that we can't just build something brand new on. So I think right now, our housing needs can be met by just supporting the people that know how to do it, right? The city's not going to be building affordable housing. But right now, the city's directly responsible for infrastructure. That's the roads, that's the bridges, that's all the utilities underground, and the schools. And the state has an obligation to help with the schools, period. So fundamentally, the local responsibility fundamentally is the infrastructure. It's the infrastructure, the roads that make everything else possible. And so that's I think it's really important to keep that in mind. What are the roles of the respective levels of government? Where are their strong suits? And then then figure out what is the game plan to get all the right players at the table at the right time to make sure that all those needs are met.
You are still energized by this.
Oh, yeah.
I can feel the passion. It's palpable here. I'm going to ask you the question. Would you run again? Have you thought about it? I'm sure you've thought about it.
You're not the only person that's asked me. And I think, to use the auto analogy again, no one likes retreads. I feel like I am, the experience I've gained as an elected official, and I am an architect, and I am very proud of both. I think right now, I've also was recently put on the board for the Sorensen Institute, which I'm also a graduate of, and Sorensen strives for building working relationships between people of different political stripes, be they Democrat, Republican, Independent. And I've recently been asked to be on that board and then also to help them develop programming to help teach zoning to Sorensen candidates.
That's awesome. You're training the future.
So basically if you can't get more architects and planners in local elected positions,
empower the next generation.
Get more of the elected officials to understand zoning and planning and development.
So was that a no to running again? Or
Yeah,
is that a yes?
I'm not going to, no. I also have a wonderful 34-year marriage that I want to see move on for the next 30.
What do you make of this election? You have Pinkston, Juan Diego Wade, and Nikhil Walker for 2 spots. 2 running as Democrats, 1 as an independent. Excuse me.
I'm going to...
It's an important election.
It is a very important election, so all I'm going to say is, and I'm speaking for myself as well, is really study hard their positions and ask hard questions. I must say that the problem the last time when there wasn't an incumbent running, which is interesting, because I went to many of the forums when it was Snook and McGill and Payne. Real softball questions, really. And then answers that were not that deep.
Yeah, they were just general answers.
Because it's only the incumbent that has the backstory that can enrich the answer.
Well, it's also
yeah.
also a testament to the, and I'm choosing my words carefully here because I don't want to ruffle any feathers. The media landscape in Charlottesville is very green right now. And the folks that are asking the questions, lack of a better phrase, they don't have the institutional memory to ask the right ones.
Well,
and we lost another one in Nolan Stout.
Well, and Nolan, he was definitely aggressive.
You knew he was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wish him luck wherever he is. So I think right now, though, it's going to be up on the part of the voter to ask some hard questions, really understand why decisions were made, and if they cannot come up with and what would you do in this situation? Put the candidates through a really hard test, and that's because and I'm going to be there because now it's been also interesting now to be
you're on the
back
other side.
at being a taxpayer,
Right.
Back at being a citizen.
Right. Well, maybe what Charlottesville should do is empower Kathy Galvin to be the tough question asker because you have 12 years of being in the 12 years, right?
Yeah,
of being in the
I'd lead a panel.
You should be the moderator.
The moderator, sure.
Dude, you know what we should do? Remember when we had the Lloyd Snook, Michael Payne debate here? Maybe you should.
Oh, I'd be happy
host the
to.
debate.
Oh, I could come up with some really
with
good
Juan
questions.
Diego Wade and Brian Pinkston.
Yeah.
And we'd even invite the mayor. I don't think the mayor would come, but we'd invite the mayor. I got to ask this question to you because it certainly has been in the news cycle. What did you make of the credit card usage with Mayor Nikhil Walker?
I think it's public money is not your money. And so whenever a councilor, anybody who's an appointed official, an elected official, that has to be foremost in the person's mind. And so when all I can speak of is from myself. So whenever I had the credit card in my hand that I had to use, this is not my money. This is the public's money. And I also was very aware of when did I need to get approval from my colleagues to make us even, not just, I never just not kind of made a purchase, but even make a statement or a position as I was representing the council on an appointed board that I was appointed to by council. So it's just not your money, and it's also you don't have the sole decision-making power over the public's money. Period. That's all I can say, and it's all I will say. And I just think that it's important for the public to ask the question and get the perspective from the mayor. That's
what I try to do. And I had a list of questions that I asked tied to the Facebook Live that she did. And it was interesting. The feedback I got, half the town was like, thank you, Jerry, for asking these tough questions. Half the town was like, you're the devil for asking these questions, literally. And the response was literally that divided, just because perhaps the individual's so polarizing. Okay, and that's me saying this, that's not you saying this. Here's the follow-up question. And I'm choosing my words carefully too, Kathy. If this has been going on for so long, she said since 2018, how did it get to this point when there's other folks that have got to be offering perspective, look, you can't do this?
Again, look at what's happened since 2018 in terms of the city government's leadership. It has been in a state of constant churn.
Turnover, yeah.
That city manager position is critically important as the position that mediates between the council and staff, and also makes sure that staff is towing the line, that staff understands what that line is. But if the organization has been in turmoil, which it has, then you've got a fragmented, fractured bureaucracy, which means that there's going to be confusion, and there's going to be an inconsistent response at times to when a councilor, when the mayor asks for things. And so right now, the city manager has to establish what the rules of conduct are, what the rules of engagement are with council. And council has to know what the rules of engagement are with staff. It seems like all that discipline has been totally broken apart because we haven't had a city manager at the helm where everyone has said, you're in charge.
I also think what's happening on Tuesday's council meeting, and we played a clip on this show, on Tuesday's council meeting, the mayor was screaming at Lloyd and calling him a white supremacist and a racist, literally during the council meeting. I think what also is happening is a lot of this stuff is being done via Zoom and remotely and virtually, that the human connection, even if they don't like each other or disagree, there's something to be said by sitting next to the person of what you're going to say, as opposed to saying it through a computer screen when they're not even in the same room, house, or like they're miles away from you. And you know, Councilor Heather Hill, in Tuesday's meeting was like the young and the restless. I'll straight up. I mean, it was like Victor Newman and Cricket and Jack and all those people at Tuesday's meeting. And Tuesday's meeting, Councilor Hill said people in City Hall are afraid, Mayor Walker, to go talk to you and say stuff that you're doing wrong because of the fear response that you're going to give to them.
Wow.
So they're not saying anything to you. She literally said that.
I've got to look at that.
And I'm just sitting here watching this like, oh my gosh.
Anyway, I think you raise an interesting and valid point about how
they're not next to each other.
Our technology and our means of communication has dehumanized us. It's made us two-dimensional instead of three-dimensional.
It's like we're leaving comments on Facebook now instead of having a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, at the same time, I was on council when we had an enraged public coming to council chambers, and that wasn't easy either. But at the same time, it was. I understood where the rage was coming from, and it was my job to still make the decisions, and still I showed up every day and did my job. I think but I think you're right. That's actually leveling insults against colleagues. And again, I'm coming from, I was trained by people on school board on the etiquette of being on a board to foster collegiality, because you needed the collegiality in order to make those tough decisions together. And some of my strongest mentors have been people like Reverend Alvin Edwards and Leah Purier. So I think then moving on to city council, I was on council when Satyendra Huja was mayor. I learned from Mayor Huja how to comport oneself and how to conduct business. I had great opportunity to work with other members in the community who gave me their wisdom. So I am hoping that the council is availing themselves of this great resource in our community that, like I had Bill Lucy, who had worked in New York in the Planning Commission and would give me lots of really good pointers on the kind of information I needed to look at first before I made a decision. You need a lot of help. It's a tough job, and that's where, when we were talking earlier, I have great compassion for what the counselors are going through. It's only another counselor that understands how difficult this job is.
Yeah, everybody else is a Monday morning quarterback.
It is a brutally difficult job, yeah. And thank you still, all 5 of you, for serving. It is brutally difficult. And avail yourselves of all the professional help, the seniority of the people around you that can give you some wisdom to make these tough decisions. One thing I want to say is that one thing, when I was on the council with, it was Signer, Bellamy, me, I guess Zakos, and Fenwick. And Holly Edwards was still with us. And I think that we're all still feeling the loss of that human being in our midst. But she talked to Huja. No, it's actually, so it was before. Because Huja was still mayor. Oh my goodness, so it was Dave Norris, me, Dee Dee Smith, Kristen Zakos, and Huja. And so Holly Edwards connected with Mayor Huja and said, we need to convene a meeting of all the former electeds to talk with council, because at that time it looked like there was division and tension. And that was a profound meeting. Maybe it's time to convene a meeting and avail yourselves of all the other former elected officials that have served and have a chance to avail yourselves of the wisdom of their perspective.
Is that open to the public?
That was open to the public. It was a public meeting. There was about 15, 16 people. So it's important, because only another counselor knows what you're going through, and they can help you, and I'm sure they would if they were asked. And some of us just offer our opinions anyway.
That's why we like you, Kathy Galvin. That's why we like you. We're 52 minutes in. I got to be mindful of your time. You're getting props from a lot of people. Bashir is watching.
Oh, Bashir.
Bashir says you're the voice of reason. You are missed in Charlottesville. Multiple people have asked if you're running for council again, and please do. Keith, who is watching, wants to know your opinion on staff for councilors, that it's turned into such a significant job now. Should we be allocating staff to councilors?
Well, we had gotten to the point where council had agreed to do that. We had it in the budget. We wanted someone who's going to be our communication specialist and someone who's going to help us do policy work. And we had hired a person to do the communications, and we were interviewing the person to do policy work, but then there was a change of council. And then all of a sudden, the change of council there was no agreement. And then before long, it was taken out of the budget. So we tried, Keith, because we needed to have the resources in place to do the research that we need to make good decisions. And the argument at the time was, we need to have the city manager do that. All right? Okay. Then make sure your city manager has the resources that he or she needs to do the policy analysis and to communicate in one voice what the pros and cons are. And then when a decision is made, let that city manager execute, and execute across time and across terms of office. Because otherwise you're going to continue to have a demoralized staff in bureaucracy who never gets the sense that anything is accomplished. And that's not just Kathleen Galvin speaking. That was written in the efficiency study from 2017. You got to have a work plan, and you got to stick to it. And when you don't, then everything's like a whipsaw. And nothing, and you can't call yourself progressive if you don't make progress. Period.
I love that one right there. Last one. Why don't we close with this one here? Your thoughts on the importance of this election coming up. Every election is important. This particular election has a lot riding on the line.
I think it has a lot riding on the line because the city hasn't been in these kinds of dire straits since the 2008 recession. And I would say we were in better shape then because we had more stable leadership. And I'm talking about leadership of the bureaucracy. So I think that now that you've got a situation where the external factors in the world are so unpredictable and changeable, combined with internal factors that are unresolved and totally in turmoil, means that you've got a situation where you can't anchor yourself and you can't figure out even how to begin to make the right decisions. So the confusion is a problem. I think the council's made an excellent decision to get stable leadership in place. And I believe that was because they couldn't even do a search for a new manager because the search firm that was helping them said, I can't work with you because you're too dysfunctional.
That's what happened.
So right now, they're making the right move. Now let that city manager do his job, period. And then when you get a recommendation, follow through with it. And then the public's got to look at how the council acts now, right? And how do we get to this point with the current council? And then ask the two new candidates coming on board, how would you have avoided this chaos? And then what would you be doing moving forward? So I think bureaucracies are the major tool that elected officials have to execute their policies. Without a well-functioning bureaucracy with a very clear chain of command and a leader who knows his or her stuff cold, you cannot get your policies in place. And so just last thought, so don't undo the policies of previous councils, which is what you'd be doing by not funding other priorities that have been put in place in the work plan, become a part of the organization's work plan for years, and think that you're doing your work. You think through what you need to do to balance all these competing needs, and then get back to making policy. And you can only do that if you let your city manager execute. Right? And there's not been new legislation coming out of this council. That's the other thing that's been amazing to me. There's been there's been a lot of needing to approve extensions of funding and making sure we're in compliance with COVID.
I think it's because of COVID. It's COVID.
And COVID's
monopolizing.
But it's like, I think they all are hungry
to do work.
To do
actual
the
work.
work that councilors are local legislators. That's what they are. They make laws. They make resolutions and policies. And right now, it just feels a little bit like spinning the wheels.
Well said.
But I think Michael Payne even said that.
He did say that. He said that in a very transparent commentary for Charlottesville Tomorrow. Yeah, he did say that. You are a phenomenal interview.
Well, thank you for the chance to speak about. It's clear that I love the city.
All right, it's so clear.
So
you're passionate about it. Thank you.
Thank you
for coming on the show. Kathy Galvin, guys, former Charlottesville City Councilor. Can I reach out to you again?
Absolutely. I like the idea of the panel.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Brian and Juan and see if we do a live debate. And then would you be interested in hosting it?
Sure.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you could ask questions that no one else could ask. I couldn't ask the questions that you could ask.
Yeah, I would certainly put some time in that.
Let's see. May I also invite the mayor?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The public needs to see.
Fantastic. So we'll extend 3 invitations. We'll see if former City Councilor Kathy Galvin will be the host of a live debate with questions of substance.
Yeah.
That would be great.
And I would also like to see if there's a way to let other people throw me questions.
Yeah, we could crowdsource the questions in advance.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
Because it's not just me. But
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
It's absolutely our
pleasure. It's made a
pleasure.
rainy day kind of
better.
More better.
There you go. We feel the same. J-Dubs, if you could see Councilor Galvin out, former City Councilor Kathy Galvin out, I'll get Keith Smith on the line here. We're going to reach out to Keith now. Thank you for joining us on the show, Kathy. Keith Smith show, Real Talk, airs tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. on the I Love CVille Network. I thought the interview we did right there with Councilor Galvin, former Councilor Galvin, was absolutely fantastic. Thank you for joining us. We have Keith on the line here, Keith Smith. My friend, how are you? What an interview right there, huh? I think we're going to host a live debate on the network. If Brian Pinkston and Juan Diego Wade are up for it, which I think they will be, Keith, and in that debate we'll have Kathy Galvin, perhaps as the host of the debate. I think it would be absolutely fantastic.
As Bashir said, I want a front seat.
Right? So. We'll stream it online. My friend, how are you?
If I was doing any better, it'd be illegal. A little wet today, but if I was doing any better, it's legal. I took copious notes from Kathy's little interview with you, and I literally don't know where I could add to that conversation. She was just absolutely, on point with everything. And as we said more than once before, you need somebody with a little bit of institutional memory. And thank you for sharing that conversation and my particular thoughts about having staff. I was not aware that was in a budget at one point in time. And, we're in budget season. Maybe it's the time to put it back in. Maybe this is something Mr. Boyles might run past the city council. I think it'll make his job so much easier and make the city councilors more effective in what they do.
What's your take on the West Main Streetscape?
Well, we've been talking about that, you and I, and Kathy hit it spot on. You can't look at, as you know, I'm an affordable housing advocate and I'm passionate about it, but I think you and I spoke about this many times. It requires basically 3-legged stool to really effectively do it, right? We've got the affordable housing component, which is money from the local jurisdictions or raising it privately like we did on the telethon.
Do you think we should do the West Main Streetscape or not?
No.
That's the
answer,
take.
I think, I got it. I think the answer is yes. And
We still got you? Keith, you're frozen. Oh, man, we got him. I want to hear what his take is here. All right, I'm going to try to reach out to Keith Smith again. Keith, I'm going to call you right now. I want to get his take here on the West Main. Guys, the West Main Streetscape project is, I mean, you're looking at potentially a project as impactful to Charlottesville, Virginia as the downtown mall project was when they converted it from road to pedestrian. Keith, you're back on. We got you here. Would you do the West Main Streetscape project?
The short answer is yes, for the exact reasons Kathy outlined.
Me too. I would do it. I think it's a no-brainer.
That's the short answer. But I understand the struggle that the current board or the current city councils are going through at the moment.
It's going to straight up come down to Cena's vote.
It is, but you know, I intimately know Smart Scale. I've put projects through Smart Scale, so I dropped the link in the feed for anybody who wanted to actually take an opportunity and read what it is. But you know, there's a substantial amount of money we tend to lose, and you know, she's 1,000% right. This infrastructure needs to get done. So now's the time to do it with the money that we have, that we've been given from the state. Otherwise, it's going to have to, as they fail, and which they will, it's going to come right out of the coffers. So the short answer is yes, for all the reasons Kathy outlined.
My friend, I enjoyed chatting with you. And tomorrow on Real Talk, you're going to educate the region on the value of the Shenandoah Valley and Waynesboro on real estate on the other side of the mountain.
We've got 2 real estate agents coming on from that other side of the mountains to talk that very subject tomorrow.
I cannot wait.
I'm looking forward to it. I know it's on everybody's, tongue and interest in it. So I'm looking forward to it. So it should be exciting. You know, we'll hold on to our proverbial seat. I believe they're both coming in. They're rotating on that hot seat that we have set up. So everybody knows we're over 8 feet apart. So it's exciting.
And don't you miss that? People like me and you miss that, don't we?
Oh man, you've got, when we did our show on Friday, bringing in like appraisers and these round tables, I can't wait to get back to that end of it. And I think you solved the problem. I think your team solved a technical problem where we can physically be in one space. The telethon has proved that. And every one of us being 8 feet away, when you look at your triple split screen that you do, it looks like we're all sitting together, but we're not. We're literally 8 feet apart. And, man, I can't wait. For the very same reason that you very clearly articulated, when you do meetings via Zoom, you lose the personal connection. Reading your body language, it just becomes very different. A prime example of that, though, it was 1,000% wrong, was what happened out in California, right? That people just think they play by different rules for whatever reason, instead of thinking they're in a public meeting. But yeah, I'm excited about it. Can't wait.
I cannot wait to see you tomorrow. Real Talk presented by the Yes Team Realtors and Yes Realty Partners. Tomorrow at 10:15 a.m., Friday at 10:15 a.m., we're talking Waynesboro and the Shenandoah Valley, a real estate roundtable, Keith.
So as part of the public watching, I want to say thank you for that interview you just did. That was a great interview, a great get, and I was texting
tomorrow, Michael Payne.
Yeah, that's another great get. I'm going to have to rearrange my schedule so I can watch. But,
and I want to emphasize this too. I've invited, now the leadership is asking to come on the show, but for anyone that is wondering, I have extended multiple open invitations to the mayor to come on the program. So I just want to emphasize that. Keith Smith, my friend, I will see you tomorrow at 10:15 a.m., sir.
Every opportunity to spend time with you, I enjoy. Tomorrow will be show 140, believe it or not.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. You have a good one, homie.
Thank you. You too, brother.
Bye, Keith. All right, Keith Smith, guys. Yes Team Realtors, Yes Realty Partners. Keith Smith and Jonas Smith of Yes Team Realtors are as honest, have the utmost integrity, and are the hardest working folks I know. Yes Team Realtors, Keith and Jonas Smith. I have literally seen it firsthand, the impact they have on people's lives. Hugely positive impact on people's lives. All right, I want to turn this into a sizzle reel, what I'm about to do. It's going to be 3 minutes or less, and we'll close the show. Okay, J-Dubs? So this will be a sizzle reel that I'm going to want to get out across the network. It's about 1:37 here on the marker. I'll keep this under 3 minutes. Folks, the election that we have on November 3rd, 2021 in Charlottesville, Virginia, is the most important election we've had in the history of this municipality, the history of this fair city. We have school reconfiguration on the agenda. We have a $50 million plus West Main Streetscape project that we have to do. A parking garage that's the centerpiece between an agreement with the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County to keep the courts in downtown Charlottesville. We have a new city manager, and whether or not we're going to go down the road with Chip Boyles long-term or do a national search and bring in a new city manager. We're still reeling in the wake of COVID from a revenue standpoint. I mean, you heard former Councilor Kathleen Galvin on the show say we're in a more precarious position as a city now than we were in 2008 during the 2008 recession, because at least in 2008, leadership was steady and stable in City Hall. Now it's a roller coaster ride. I mean, it's like Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens inside City Hall right now. It's tumultuous. It's all over the place. The election that we have roughly 8.5 months from now will determine the next 3 years of Charlottesville, Virginia. Remember, Michael Payne, Lloyd Snook, and Sina McGill, they have 3 years left of time on the dais. 3 years. By the time the new person gets in office, they'll have 2 years. So these 2 open spots that are up for grabs on November 3rd, they will determine the 5 people that lead Charlottesville, Virginia for the next 2 years. Those 5 people who lead Charlottesville, Virginia for the next 2 years will pick a city manager, will determine the future of the centerpiece of the city of Charlottesville, Albemarle County courthouse agreement, the Market Street parking garage. They will determine the future of the West Main Streetscape project, school reconfiguration. Those 5 people will be entrusted with huffing life into a municipality that is close to flatlining on the operating room table at Martha Jefferson's emergency room. It's not hyperbole, it's fact. It's not exaggerated, it's straight up conversation. The most important election we have had is November 3rd. And Albemarle County, Louisa County, Orange County, Fluvanna County, Greene County, you go as this 10.2 square miles go. And right now, these 10.2 square miles, they lack a North Star or a compass that can show them where to go. I'm not saying Brian Pinkston's the answer. I'm not saying Juan Diego Wade's the answer. All I'm saying is 2 spots are up for grabs on the 3rd of November. Get engaged, learn about what's going on, ask the tough questions. Because the 2 people we elect on the 3rd of November are going to team up with Lloyd Snook, Sina McGill, and Michael Payne to be the 5 people that lead Charlottesville for the next 2+ years. So if you don't have a chance to vote or get engaged, you can't complain about leadership. Okay? All right, I'm out of here. My name is Jerry Miller. It's the I Love CVille Show. Tomorrow, Michael Payne and Alex Erpy on the program. Tomorrow's show is going to be great. I think Michael Payne's in studio, Charlottesville City Councilor. Make sure you put it on your calendar. You're not going to want to miss this interview. For Judah Wickower, my name is Jerry Miller. It's the I Love CVille Show. Take care.